my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me today. I have a very special guest on the show today. You know, when it comes to preparing and being aware, looking for red flags, things that we should know, hey, this is what could go on in your world. You have to be prepared. You have to be careful. You have to be alert. And that's why I am so excited about this guest we have on the line. He has been in the self-defense world for a long time. He has been teaching self-defense for a very long time. He truly believes you should be prepared to help yourself and help others. He's had so many students over the years. How do I know this? Because I have known Ray Amanat for many years now. Ray he is the founder of Heroes in Action, and they are a not-for-profit organization that wants to help you stay safe, be prepared, be alert of what's going on out there. But not only that, he is a author of many books, and I've seen him in his big costume, should I say, where he wants children to be aware. This is what could go wrong, and I want to help you be prepared. My friends, I am so excited to welcome on the show Ray Amanat of Heroes in Action. Ray, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Manny. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share with your viewing audience.
Good. And thank you for being here, because I know you got a busy schedule going on. You got a lot of things going on. Now, share a little with me, a little personal, I know, but just for the audience to know as well a little about you. But you just recently moved from Missouri to Florida. How has that change been for you?
The change has been eye-opening and probably one of the best decisions I've made. I lived in St. Louis for over 51 years of my life, and I've never lived anywhere else. And with COVID hitting, and that pretty much brought me to a standstill with my business. As a public speaker, I can't go to the public. So I looked at different locations. Where do I want to reset? And I just said, why wait till my retirement age to move to Florida? Why not move to Florida, grow my business, and then when I'm ready to retire, then I'm already here. So that was the big deciding factor for me moving out here.
So you've already had your eye on Florida for years, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, it was cross between Texas, Tennessee, Arizona, and Florida won.
Nice. Thank you. I know. So one more question that's a little off subject. Are you playing pickleball yet?
I'm actually playing your favorite sport. I'm playing racquetball every now and then whenever I get a chance to, since my headquarter facility is based inside a racquetball training center.
I can definitely appreciate that. That's awesome. The only reason why I brought up pickleball, because Florida is well known for pickleball down there. The Villages is huge down there. My friend, share a little about Heroes in Action, why you started this organization. I've heard the story. I love your story. I love where it comes from. Please share a little with the audience on who Ray Amanat is and why did you start Heroes in Action?
So prior to me starting the Heroes in Action, I was a victim, from elementary school all the way up through high school. I was a victim of severe verbal and physical bullying. I didn't want to be that victim anymore, so I decided to get into martial arts. At the age of 15, I started taking karate lessons, and once I got my black belt, I ended up ultimately taking over the school. But here I had a brick and mortar business where I'm always trying to drive traffic to get students to come to me. So I had the brick and mortar for over 25 years, and dealing with different situations and landlords, I ultimately had to shut the business down. So I was at a crossroads do I want to open another brick and mortar, or do I want to do something that enables me to reach and teach more people? So I looked into the nonprofit world, and that's where I came up with the concept of Heroes in Action. Heroes is an acronym for helping everyone resist oppression every day safely. And instead of having four walls that I try to drive traffic to, I can go nationwide and do lectures and seminars on how to not be a victim of any form of bullying or violence. I wish when I was in school that I had a public speaker come and give me strategies on how to stand up to the bully and to know what to do, know what to say, to not be a target or a victim anymore. So I created Heroes in Action and created the curriculum that goes with it to be able to go into schools, go into communities, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church youth groups, and give them the information that I wish I had growing up, and hopefully save a life. If I can prevent the child from committing suicide, or if I can prevent the child from becoming the next mass shooter at a school, because of the strategies that I share with them, then for me, I'm saving lives. I'm doing something positive for our country.
I can definitely appreciate that. And I love how you finished right there where you were saying doing it for our country. You know, you see a lot of what goes on out there, and you right before we jumped on, we were talking about like true crime news, what you were sharing is I hear the most when it's big mainstream media stuff where everyone's covering it. And that's probably on a regular basis because there's always something that is in the news. And
Right.
what are you doing to help students per se? Like how do you make them comfortable in the process of learning how to, hey, I'm an adult, you don't know me, but I want to teach you. How do you make them feel comfortable with that?
So one of the things that people need to understand when it comes to any type of self-defense training, martial arts training, you're basically entrusting or putting your life in the hands of the instructor. For you to trust me to give you the knowledge to avoid or survive a violent confrontation, that's a lot. So I want to use an analogy since you're a racquetball coach. With your students, you're training them to be the best that they can be so that they can win a tournament or ultimately win a state championship, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that the prize is the trophy. The prize is the event that they can claim, hey, I am the winner. For me, what I teach, the prize is you being able to make it back home to your family. That's the trophy, you still staying alive. So you have them practice over and over again how to serve, how to make their opponent run all over the court while they stay in the center, how to use their backhand as well as their forearm, how to do those kill shots. Well, mine isn't that different. My goal is to teach people to have situational awareness, be aware of what's going on around them, being tuned in, not tuned out, having that verbal plan to know what to say for A, drawing attention, B, putting the person on notice that you're not going to be an easy target, you're going to be a tough target, and C, getting the right kind of help. Hopefully bystanders hear you and come help you if they're trained to. Most people don't want to get involved because of fear. So they'll say it's not my problem and they choose to avoid it or ignore it or move on. My job is to teach people to be able to A, stand up for themselves, and B, if they see something, stand up for someone else that doesn't know how to stand up for themselves. and we tie that into, we call law enforcement or military sheepdogs. Sheepdogs are the people that are trained to go into action and take care of the problem. Then you have watchdogs. Watchdogs are the people that I might not be trained, but I still want to do something. So I'm going to call 911. You hear them say, if you see something, say something or report it. So hopefully people will at least be a watchdog. That's why we have neighborhood watch programs in our communities. But you still got to teach people to know what to look for so they know when and how to report it to the sheepdogs to take care of the wolf. The wolf being the criminal that we want to get off the streets.
Wow, some great analogies there, man, and some great ways to really tie in the way we can relate to the wolf dog and like the wolf and the sheep, and I can appreciate that. So, have you followed at all the Uvalde shooting?
Yes, yes. Not as much as I'd like to, or as much as I should have, but you don't want to get into a lot of the conspiracy theory type stuff. You want to wait until all of the facts come out. Was there an issue with law enforcement not acting fast enough? Now it comes out, how does this kid that doesn't have a job, doesn't have an income, but how can he afford to go out and buy literally probably $4,000 to $5,000 worth of firearm equipment and ammo and a vest, and that's a lot of money. I just went to a gun show and I'm looking at the prices, everything there, and it's crazy prices. So how can this kid, doesn't have a job, doesn't have any money or anything else, afford all the guns that he had? So again, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but
Yeah, on how this could have happened.
Let's wait till the facts come out.
Well, he
I need to know
allegedly
more.
worked at Wendy's and was saving his money for it. That's what so far I've heard on that end. So it's like, and here's what I appreciate, and this is something that I'm learning how to do. You didn't want to give too much because until all the facts come out.
Correct.
And sometimes when you're in true crime, you're like, okay, someone needs to pay for this and we want the bad guy to pay, and sometimes they're too quick to blame a bad guy that sometimes is not the bad guy. And that's where we do got to be careful, because and this is a learning lesson for me as well. I reported on the Uvalde shooting. At first report was she left the door open a little bit. Later reporting, no, the door just didn't lock. She didn't leave it open. But I went with what I was reading all along, and that's where you make a very good point. Gotta be careful how quick you jump on these stories. Now that the Harmony Montgomery story has broken big time today, it's like, okay, I gotta go bits and pieces. I can't just go with everything they're saying, because the media can twist things right away. I cannot tell you how many times in searching for stories, I'm like, wait a second, this media was reporting this and that is furthest from the truth now that we know more. So I appreciate you saying that.
If you look at it, when the media is asking the chief of police or the sheriff of that municipality, that city, that county, he's always going to refrain from giving out too much information because they don't have all the evidence, they don't have all the facts. They don't want to implicate somebody that is innocent. You look at what was oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. The kid that in the riots that shot a couple people to
Yes.
protect themselves.
Yes.
Okay, he ended up once all the facts came out in court, they ended up saying that he was innocent. So you got to be careful of what you report and what you say.
I can appreciate that, and I'm new to the true crime stuff, but at the same time I understand I have to be careful. I'm reporting. I'm almost a second nature of media. Like, this is media. We're doing this on YouTube live. We're on Facebook. People will see this. So it's like I am learning that I have to be careful as I'm jumping on this. That's why I like to try to focus on the story when it's complete, not
Sure.
while it's in the middle. I'm still learning, because I want to be like, okay, look at how this daughter just disappears from this family, and it takes them a year and a half before anyone's like, what happened to the little girl? Why did it
Right.
take a year and a half before someone realized this little girl's no longer with you?
Sure.
So it's like, that's why I want to raise awareness. It's like, hey, this little girl existed. Now no one knows what happened, and the parents are not. They're like, well, I'm blaming her and so if there were more eyeballs aware that, hey, what happened to this little girl that was with you all the time, right? So that's why I like to do this in the what's going on right now, so that we can be aware. Hey, look for this bad person that just broke out of prison or something. We got to be aware.
So to not be a victim, when I do my lectures or presentations, I ask everyone, do you have spidey senses? Do you have eyes in the back of your head? And I use this story as an example. So there's a lady that she was in a relationship that was gone south. She was getting a divorce from the husband, and she had a restraining order against him. Now, when you have a restraining order, that's just a piece of paper. That's not going to save your life. It's you letting family members, neighbors, co-workers, everyone around you know, hey, look, I actually fear for my safety. I don't feel comfortable. If you see his car, this is what he drives. If you see him, this is what he looks like. You need to let me know immediately so I can get away from him as fast as I can, because he's not supposed to be around me within 50 to 100 feet or so. She failed to tell family members, neighbors, co-workers. She goes to work. Her soon-to-be ex-husband comes to work and goes up and says, hey, is my wife here? It's her birthday and I wanted to, surprise her. So the coworkers didn't know anything that was going on. And they're like, oh, he's here to surprise her. That's so nice. I wish my boyfriend or husband or whatever would surprise me. She's in the back. Go ahead and go back there and surprise her. So he goes back there and turns it into a murder-suicide. He kills her and then kills himself. Now, the spidey senses, if she would have warned her family members, warned her neighbors, her co-workers, at work, the co-workers could have changed everything and said, well, she's in the back. Why don't you wait in the break room? While you're waiting there, we'll send her to you and you can surprise her then. And while he's waiting in the break room, they could warn her, she can get out of the building, and they can call law enforcement, come in, check him for weapons, and show that he's in breach of that restraining order and get arrested, and she would still be alive. So, a lot of people don't want to say anything to family members, to friends or neighbors or coworkers out of embarrassment. Nobody needs to know what's going on in my life. So I'm going to keep everything to myself. And in doing that, you're giving power to the person that is tormenting you and scaring the crap out of you or threatening your life.
Wow. So that is so interesting, and I like that you use that term spidey senses, because that's those feelings that you start really, obviously it comes from Spider-Man, but it's, those little feelings like, ooh, something doesn't feel right. And if we ignore those feelings without at least checking around us, or, in the case of the story that you're sharing, it's like the more people that would have known, the more protection they could have tried to assist in. Like,
the more eyes you have in the back of your head. I've got all my friends, all my coworkers. You know how in the military they say, I got your six, I got your back?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's if we're not soldiers, we're not in the military, so we have to create that atmosphere where our friends, our coworkers, our family members have our backs. And the only way is to let them know, hey, this is what's going on in my life. I don't feel safe. Can you keep an eye out for me?
Nice.
And warn me. Give me a heads up.
That's a great tip right there. That's great. That's great information because at the same time, it's like even though you are going to be embarrassed, you rather probably be alive, you know. And it's like that's what scares me. You never know what that person is capable of, you know. And it's like they can have that very one moment that they snap like never before, like
Well,
nothing you would have ever seen.
there's always that judgment, being judged. If I, well, you're getting a divorce, why are you getting a divorce? Nobody wants to say, well, I'm dealing with, my wife or my husband has mental health issues, he's bipolar, or he's a drug addict, or an alcoholic, and he becomes abusive whenever he's like that, or they're too controlling, because of insecurities and they've threatened me. Whatever the reason, most people don't want to say anything out of embarrassment. It's going to come out anyway
Very
once you
true.
get divorced. Everything comes out. So you might as well let people know, let it out so that you have that early warning system, those red flags that can go off and alert you to, hey, something bad is about to happen. You need to go.
That's a great tip that you're offering there. Now, why should someone take self defense classes? Like, should anyone? I did hear one of the kids say that they're learning jujitsu. You know, one of the kids I coach, they're learning jujitsu so that just for self defense purposes.
So nobody is. So what's the biggest fear of any parent? Something bad happening to their child, whether it's their child being bullied or their child being abducted and taken away, tortured, sold into sex trafficking, human trafficking, whatever. A lot of people don't take their personal safety seriously until something bad happens to either them, somebody in their family, or somebody in their community. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I need to take a self-defense class. When I lived in St. Louis, back in the 90s, there was a serial rapist, a South Side rapist. And everyone was so afraid that my self-defense programs for women were selling out all the time. Every time I'd hold a seminar, it would be a full class because people were taking it serious. Um, but then when that died down, or even when Cassidy Center and Angie Hausman were the two girls that were abducted and never found, or they were found but they never found the murderer, they finally caught them, maybe 20 years later,
Mm-hmm.
through DNA. But it's still, when those tragedies happen, then parents took child safety serious and wanted their kids to learn how not to be abducted, how not to be lured. Yeah, yeah, you're dealing with adults that are grooming children or using lures to get kids away from the families, to put them in the traffic them, or to just torture them, and you'll never see that child again. So, why should you take self defense? It's for peace of mind. I hope to God that whatever I teach my students, that they never have to use what I share with them. But I would rather be over prepared and never have to use what I know than not have any knowledge whatsoever and then be put in a situation where I'm the goldfish and I'm dealing with sharks. You wouldn't take a beginner racquetball student and put them in against somebody that's been playing for 10, 15 years.
Not in
You're
competition purposes.
no. So it's the same thing. I don't want to send minnows out to the sharks.
So,
So
with that being said, have you had a student that's been faced with something that, thanks to being prepared, they were able to get out of it?
I've got so many students that have sent me letters, that have send me emails. The parents have called me and said, Mr. Amanat, thank you for saving my child's life. One kid, he was away to college, and somebody broke into his dorm room and had a big knife. And he told me that all I could think of is what would Mr. Amanat do? What's it?
Oh, I
And
love it.
all of that training just came out where he just started yelling and screaming to the top of his head. He looked around his room and found whatever he could use to turn into an improvised weapon, and just scared the heck out of that guy to where he ended up taking off and running. But the parents called me and said, "Thank you for saving my son's life." You know, another student was walking her dog at a dog park, and a guy approached her and started attacking her. The dog didn't do anything. He had her on the ground. She was screaming. She had her keys, and she dug the key into the guy's eye. And then the dog started biting the guy in the leg, and he ended up getting away. She filed a police report, and they didn't find the guy until later, where they found him in a hospital. The guy had an infection in his leg from the dog bites, and he ended up losing his eye from what she did to it with the keys.
Wow.
So and there's more. I can tell you stories all day long of students that have have literally used what I've shown them and saved their lives. I've had police officers that I've trained, uh, students that ended up joining the military, that came back from the military and said, "Mr. Amanat, your training saved my life." It wasn't necessarily what they learned in boot camp; it was what I showed them. So, but you know, it feels good, and I'm glad they're safe. But I'm sad that they had to go through the trauma of
Yeah.
being victimized or being attacked.
Thank you for sharing. And that's what builds credibility, and like why would someone want to hire you, right? Like, okay, great that you know now what are the results. Well, I mean, you're right that it's tragic. But again, this is the world we live in. We live in a sinful filled world, and we never know when someone's going to need to be able to defend yourself or get that knife away from that person. Granted, we can't dodge bullets, you know, but a lot of crime happens without bullets as well. And being prepared, especially domestic violence, you really want these people to be prepared when that partner comes at you and you're just like fear. What is it called? Fight or flight. You know,
Right. Well,
I've
it's
been in
fight,
that
flight, or
situation.
it's fight, flight, or freeze. And what I don't want
Fight,
anyone to do,
flight, or
or
freeze.
freeze. What I don't want anyone to do is freeze.
Yeah.
If you're gonna fight, you better learn to fight. Otherwise, flee, run, get as far as you can, get to a safe place, and know what to say to draw the right kind of attention so people can hear you. People can either be that watchdog or that sheepdog and give you the help that you need to stay safe.
Nice. That great tips there. See, that's exactly why I wanted to bring you on, because we never know when we're gonna need this stuff. Now, you're in Florida. How can you help someone that may not be in Florida but might want to learn what? When would they want to check out your YouTube channel? When would they want to check out your books? Like your YouTube channel, it looks like you offer some good self-defense type stuff. Is that a good place where they can learn their own, like look at what you're doing, maybe they can learn a little something?
So I created the YouTube page for people that have taken my seminars, and I have them use my YouTube page as a way to review the material that they learned. I don't always recommend watching videos to learn self-defense, because as a trainer, I'm not there to correct them if they're doing something wrong to where they can hurt themselves or hurt the partner that they're working with. Would you want your students to learn from a video to learn how to play racquetball?
Not to learn how to play.
Exactly. So once you teach them, then yes, as a coach, we always want, let's videotape or let's record your racquetball match so you can learn from it and you can see what you did right, what you did wrong, were you in the right position. Well, it's the same thing, and I would rather teach you in person there's no better way to learn than feeling it in person from the educator, from the instructor. When you feel my energy and you feel what it's like when it's done right, you'll learn faster and you'll retain the information more than just trying to follow a video. I've been
Nice.
doing martial arts for over 40 years. I can go on YouTube and watch other videos from other martial artists and pretty much pick up on it because I've been doing it for as long as I have.
Makes sense.
But if you're somebody that has never had any formal training from somebody and you're looking at a video and you don't know what it's supposed to feel like, that's where you can end up getting hurt or you can end up hurting somebody. So my YouTube page, yes, you can go to it and learn from it, but I use that mainly for people that have attended my lectures or my seminars so that they can review what they've learned and keep it fresh on their mind. Because the next week I'm going to Knoxville, Tennessee to do a seminar out there. So I'm not going to be readily available for them all the time. I do a 3 hour seminar, and after that, I send them to the YouTube page and say, this is your way of reviewing the material that you learned from this seminar. And then it's got other stuff on there that they can look at and practice that I might not have touched on because there's so much out there to learn.
Yeah. I noticed too when I was looking at some of your presentations, it looks like you help a lot of people in law enforcement, a lot of students, a little of everyone. Do you help like fire department? You don't probably train them, or do you?
Yeah, I would love to, and here's why. A lot of fire departments, they go to calls that are if there's looting going on and people start fires. So you have the criminal element that's out there that can still attack firefighters, no different than attacking a law enforcement. When you're wearing a uniform, you kind of have a target on your back, which is why there's not a lot of people going to the police academies to become police officers. They're dying to recruit more officers, but when they looked at defunding a lot of the departments, and the departments aren't really backing their officers, officers are retiring left and right, which is hurting our communities. It's not making our communities as safe as we can make them. So with first responders, if you're dealing with somebody that is on drugs and they've got any type of syringes that you can get stuck with, not knowing what's in that needle, they need to learn how to be able to A, control that so that they don't get stuck. B, if it's a violent person that's having an episode, they need to be able to keep themselves safe and use gurney restraints to control them so they can administer the type of help that they need to calm the person down so they can treat them. So are there safety issues for firefighters, first responders? Absolutely. I haven't approached them like I should to see if
Yeah.
they want the kind of training.
You said something. I'm like I'm wow is how I'm feeling right now because you said something that I know has happened. I watch a lot of true crime stuff. And the syringe, right? Or the get away from me, or even, someone belligerent, drunk, you got to be able to defend yourself, especially if you're maybe a petite female working, you got to be prepared. These are
Right.
some stupid people who do things under the, whatever is going through them at that very moment. So you got like 4 books out, is that right? 4 books?
5.
5 books. So
So
tell me
I've
about your
got
purpose with these books.
So the main purpose of the first book that I wrote was kind of about myself, my journey. It's called Bully, Victim, or Hero. And that's how I went from being the victim of bullying to I became the bully to now I have dedicated my life to teaching people how to be heroes for themselves and for others. The children's books that I've written are called The Adventures of Mushy the Martian. And I wrote those books to be used as a tool for teachers and parents to introduce sensitive topics to their kiddos. So, one is dealing with bullies, two is dealing with strangers, and three is following directions. And then I tied that all together by creating a coloring activity book, which ties in all three of the first books, where kids can work on learning how to be critical thinkers and problem solvers. I wanted to create something that is an activity where the child is not face first into an iPad or a cell phone, looking at videos all the time, but it's something that they can be engaged with and do something with their parents as well.
That and is so you got Mushy the Martian. This is Mushy the Martian, I take it?
I have a mascot, which is Mushy the Martian, and Mushy, whenever, like, I'm doing a summer camp this Thursday at Wesley Chapel, and typically Mushy would be with me. Unfortunately, Mushy is not going to be, but once I do a program for kids that ties into all three of the Mushy books, then I bring Mushy out and all the kids get to meet Mushy. I'm looking at getting superhero capes with Mushy on the back of it, Mushy t-shirts, and I'm trying to get a headset that's got Mushy ears, antennas, and a third eye. So when I start, I want to visit children's hospitals and read our Mushy books to kids and get them to meet Mushy in person, and then give them all the Mushy swag so they can be Mushy as well.
So who would these books be for? Like who would you recommend for this book?
So, Bully Victim or Hero is ideal for middle school, high school age kids, for school counselors, for parents. It's got a lot of information that they can, if they read each chapter with the child, or if the child reads each chapter and then has a discussion with their school counselor, social worker, psychiatrist, or the parent, to kind of look at, well, what did you think about this chapter and how did it make you feel? And do you think you can apply the strategies that he talked about? So each chapter is broken down into a lesson plan that talks about what I went through and how I overcame it. And I try to share that with people so that they too can overcome obstacles that they're dealing with in their lives.
Nice. And what about the young for the younger ones? Who would the parents get these, or what would this be like? Who would
So
that be for?
those are going to be for your 3, 4 year olds that the parents can read the book to them, all the way up to probably third or fourth grade. So pre-K to fourth grade, I think those books would be ideal for. Where it's so I've written a book. You have Mushy. He comes to Earth. He looks different, and everyone's making fun of him. So he makes three friends: Muggsy the mad dog, Gutsy the good dog, and Shasta the shy dog. So that's three different personalities: aggressive, assertive, and passive, that Mushy is learning from. And at the end of each book, Mushy's parents are going to say, well, who would you listen to? Would you listen to Muggsy the mad dog, where he's going to address the situation aggressively? Would you listen to Shasta the shy dog, where it's just, letting people bully her or letting people manipulate her? Or would Mushy listen to responds Muggsy, then okay, we have an aggressive behavior on our hands. How do we correct that behavior? If they say Shasta the shy dog, then how do we build the self-esteem and build the confidence so that they're not shy and they're able to stand up for themselves? If they say I'll do what Gutsy the good dog does, then they know that they're on the right track to making good choices, making good decisions.
Nice. And these are fairly short to read, or like are they long, big books, short books,
No,
short
no,
reads?
they're short reads. They're
Right
meant
on.
for kids.
Right
They're
on.
meant for kids. So it's to engage them and teach them how to deal with situations that I don't want to scare kids. I want to teach them in a fun way how to deal with something. So if it ever happens, they'll have a plan of action and hopefully an exit strategy.
Awesome, awesome. My friends, if you go to his website, heroesinaction.us, you can get his books there. You can learn more about him. You can learn more about what he offers. As you can tell, he described that he would travel even to another state to train. So, you may be within distance to where he would go, but check out his books, because truth is, if you're not focused on these kids and their growth and their mindset, what there's going in there, there's something that's going to come out of that. I can tell you, out being a coach to over 50 kids, these kids are dealing with a lot at school. They're dealing with a lot when it comes to pressure. They're dealing with a lot when it comes to bullies. I saw a video of a local school recently where in the lunchroom, one student went to another school student, poured milk on the top of her head, then start punching her in the head. I was blown away. And truth is, let's be real, a lot of kids lead to bigger things. If they're the bully, that leads to bigger things. If they're the ones being bullied, that leads to bigger things. And it normally doesn't end well. But if the parent or the adult or the teacher or of the advisor doesn't take charge of the bullying, of the actual things that are causing problems, because I really don't hear enough of this, we're fighting bully. You're like, literally, until I met you, I feel like no one addresses it. It's almost like they write it off as their kids, they'll be kids.
When you say boys will be boys or girls will be girls, you're allowing a specific behavior to continue. If I am a shoplifter and I steal something and I don't get caught, am I going to steal again? Most
Yep.
likely.
Yep.
I'm going to keep doing it until, it's almost like a chemical rush or a drug. I go from stealing candy bars to go from stealing jewelry and clothing to then I steal cars to then I break into people's homes and I steal their TV sets, their computers, or whatever. Bullies don't go away, they grow up. So a child that's a bully, if you don't correct the behavior. So, dealing with schools, there's three things. It's what I call the three Ps: policies, procedures, and programs. A lot of teachers will not do anything because they have their hands tied. If a teacher puts their hands on a student, you're going to have a parent that's going to say, "How dare you touch my child?" If the teacher doesn't break the students up from fighting and the student gets hurt, you're going to have a parent say, "Well, where were the teachers? Why didn't they break up the fight?" Because they don't want to lose their jobs. They don't know if the school district has their back. It's the same with law enforcement. They don't know if their police chief and the department has their back for using a specific amount of force to be able to de-escalate a situation. So for teachers, the policies, that's where you need the school district needs to talk to the insurance, the property and casualty, PNC, because a parent is going to ultimately sue the school. So the school has to come up with, these are the physical techniques and strategies that teachers are allowed to use to safely diffuse or de-escalate a fight. So if a teacher handles a student physically a certain way, but it proves according to their policies, then the teacher knows they're not going to get in trouble. They'll probably, through the techniques that they learn, address the situation and stop it from getting out of control. Programs. What programs do they have for students? What programs do they have for the teachers, educators that address bullying? And how often do they implement it? So you want to look at Um, Schools are mandated to do fire drills at least 3 or 4 times a year, tornado drills 3 or 4 times a year, um, earthquake drills, active shooter drills. They do those all the time. But how often does a school deal with a fire or a tornado or anything like that? How often does the school deal with bullying? On a daily basis? But do they have a bully drill? Okay. So they need to dedicate, once a month or whatever, at least 15 minutes where the teacher goes over guidelines on how to be a good watchdog, how to be a good bystander, how to report something if you see something, and how to. That's why I started Heroes in Action. When I go to schools, I downplay the word bully and focus on the word hero. I try to get the kids to look at what it means to be a hero. So, do they have programs that include that? Are the insurance companies going to back them? And how often do they have those programs? Now, here's the other thing. Most of what schools do have helps the intended target or the victim. The bully usually gets suspended or expelled. So they're not doing anything to correct the bully's behavior. How do you help the bully? What programs, procedures do you have in place to help the bully to correct the behavior so they can grow up and be successful, productive adults in our communities?
Well said. Well said. Well said. And truth is, and someone even commented, I missed this a little earlier. Someone commented on Facebook how paramedics need your training, how a lot of people need your training, and she felt like this was an important interview. And as you continue to share, the more I'm like, my gosh, this is so like if they were a little more aware of preventative measures, and it's like it's hard because if you go and you rat out a bully, you still look bad, right? You still look like that snitch, or if you are that bully, you even look worse, if you ask me.
Okay, could I address that?
Sure.
You hear the phrase snitches get stitches. So how can teachers address that phrase? When I do role plays with the kids at schools, I say, okay, Manny, you're walking to a friend's house. You get to your friend's house and his house is on fire. Your friend's inside the house saying, help me, help me, help me, I need help. Are you going to run home and get some marshmallows, graham crackers, and chocolate to make s'mores? Or are you going to call 911?
Call
You,
911.
you call 911. The fire department comes, the ambulance comes, the police come. They save your friend's life. The media comes. You got a guy with a camera, microphone. Are they going to come up to you and say, are you the snitch that called 911? Or are they going to say, are you the hero that called 911 to save your friend's life? The way I try to change the way kids think at schools by reporting something, you're not being a snitch, you're being a hero because you're trying to help somebody from being tormented, from going down that dark path that might ultimately commit suicide. So, be the hero, work on if you see somebody being bullied and you don't know what to do, at least report it so that that child can get help. Let me give you another example. So schools are like cities. A city has a mayor, a school has the principal. A city has a board of aldermen, a school has a board of education. A city has law enforcement, a school has teachers. Not all police officers could be everywhere and see everything. Not all teachers can be everywhere and see everything. So the students are all the people that live in the city. You have people that live in the city, students that are going to that school. They need to know that I have to report to a teacher, just like you would have to report to a police officer, somebody doing something to your car, your vehicle, your house. a student report something, because they saw it. And the more students that report, you're sending a message to the bully that you don't want this type of behavior in the school, and hopefully the school will do the right things and help get the child the help that they need to correct that behavior. I think more money needs to go to school counselors for them to have better programs to help the kids that are bullies. You're looking at only about 3 to 5% of the kids that are constantly getting office referrals that go to the office that are bullies. So what are you going to do to help that 3 to 5%?
Good point. Good point. Great points. Great points. My friends, this has been Tuesday True Crime Live interview with Ray Amanat, and as you can tell, he's passionate about what he does. He is so passionate. The guy loves to share. He wants to help you take preventative measures in your life. He wants to help you figure out those spidey senses and those things that are around you so that you can be prepared and share. Be prepared and share. So easy for us to hold it in. What will they think of us next if they knew, right? Hey, if you're dealing with something where a lot of deaths come about, like domestic violence, like walking in the hard parts of the streets out there, you can't just walk blindly, right? Some places I'm from New York City. I left New York City because it was way too up there for what I was looking for. I want a little more laid back, right? If you're in the city, you better be prepared. Guess what? Growing up for the first 19 years of my life in New York City has helped me be alert and prepared at this is what can go wrong around us. Look around. Don't just stay tunnel vision straight when you're out there in the streets, because you never know. It's like thinking you got the green light to go. You just said, well, it's a green light, and you go and someone runs a red light. You gotta be alert. But here's the truth: as humans, we mess up, we forget, we miss those red flags. We don't pay attention to those red flags, and we just think we can fix it. Guess what? If you keep it to yourself, it can hurt long term. Just as Ray just shared that one tragic story, with the husband and the wife. So, hey, Ray is definitely someone to know, and you should definitely check him out at his website. I've shared it with you the whole time. Ray, what other ways can they get a hold of you and find out more about you?
So we've got our Heroes in Action Facebook page. I'm on Twitter, all the different social medias. Of course, I have my YouTube page, and then through our website, heroesinaction.us. You could also check out, I also have a streaming TV show that's called Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve, where I'm partnered with Steve Reed, that's based out of Texas. And we talk on sensitive topics that people normally don't want to talk about that are taboo. And we've had a lot of episodes. There's one episode 4, that if you really want to see, it's on human trafficking, that I could probably introduce you to the police officer that I interviewed, and he would be good for your show as well. His name is Officer Keaton Strong, and powerful message for parents on how traffickers groom your child and get them to want to leave you to go with them, and then once they get into that lifestyle of drugs and sex and whatever, it's hard for them to get back out of it. Most people that are trafficked ultimately can't get out of it, and the only way out is most usually overdosing or committing suicide.
And that's what we want to prevent.
Yes.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to share with us, because at the end of the day, let's be a little more prepared. Let's be a little more alert. Let's look out for one another as well. Because here's the truth. You got good people, you got bad people. It's just the truth. There's no way around that. And the more prepared, the more alert, the more neighborly, the more friendly we can be, the better off we can help other people as well. Ray, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate everything that you have been doing in all the years that I have known you. My friends, I believe we should do this again and make this a regular thing and help